But we got the best ones.
You're on
It's
music?
got the cream of the crop.
We had some issues, but we got there. Inside information, who's the best teacher?
All right, it is 5:30, so we will go ahead and call the meeting to order. Cassie, if you'll do roll call.
Mike Bullitt, William Beck, Colleen Lautenbach. Here. Allison Pitt. Here. Shelby Poole.
Here.
Greg Sand. Carly Sherrill. Here. Jolene Scornall. Here. Joel Valentine.
Here.
All right, Allison, if you'll read the mission and vision for us.
Yep. The mission of WLA is to utilize leadership-based programs and strategies grounded in solid research, combined with the demonstrated success of core knowledge curriculum as a basis of a rigorous overall educational program that builds strong skills in math, reading, literature, writing, music, science, and technology. The vision of WLA is to be a school where students and graduates become exceptional leaders and are prepared to take on the academic and leadership challenges that they will face in high school and beyond.
Thank you. Any changes to the agenda? All right, I make a motion to approve our November board meeting agenda.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Any conflicts of interest to declare tonight? No public comments? All right, we'll hand it over to Jonas for the draft annual financial report.
Yeah, so we have a representative from Abdo who did our audit here with us, here virtually, and he's going to share a little bit about the findings in the audit, which you've received. Hopefully a chance to read at least the summary and brief presentation. I don't believe we need to get too much in the weeds unless board members have questions. I think you could provide just an update as to, was it a clean audit and our overall financial position, and just a few of the highlights that board members might want to know, and then leave it if they have questions. 5 minutes or less is fine for us from a presentation standpoint, just so you know. Okay, thank you. That's all yours. What is your name again? Well, we got Dustin here too, I see now, okay. Dustin, who is, but this is Brad presenting here.
This is Brad, yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. All right, I will share the presentation, and I believe you said you liked it. I can share, it's not, let me share, is there? Oh, here we go. Okay, so this should be in your packet. It's in the screen. Okay. I'll go back. Let me know if you can hear me, but here to present the year-end fiscal year 2024 financial statement audit. Just a high-level summary again, like you requested here. So I'll just go through our audit opinion, our responsibility, general fund results, the building company fund results, and then some key performance indicators where we compare yours over to some others in the area as well as other target schools throughout the state of Minnesota. So first off, our results. Our opinion, we are issuing unmodified or clean opinion on the financials this year. So that is the opinion you're looking for when you have an audit performed. That's saying that we believe what's in the financial statements is materially accurate and reported in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The state auditor requires us to go through a series of checklists to determine, because you're receiving public money or public funds, there's specific state statutes that you also need to follow regarding those funds. So we go through those checklists and we're not reporting any non-compliance with the state statutes either. So clean reports on both the financial statements and that Minnesota compliance letter. Then we'll get into some of the results. So just some background history. This you likely know already, but average daily membership for the last 5 years has steadily increased. Ended last year at 735. I think it's on your website, you're over 800 for 2025 already, so continuing to increase that ADMs. general fund balances, so you do have this black line at the bottom, is your fund balance policy. You have fund balance policy to keep your general fund reserves at or above 20% of your general fund expenditures. So you can see the expenditures have increased, almost doubled from 2020, the 5 years we have presented here. But you're adding students and eighth grade, so that's a result of that. And you can see as you're increasing those expenditures, you're being able to monitor your budget throughout the year, stick with your budget, and keeping your reserves at above that 20%. So we ended this year, or this past year, at 26% reserves. Budget and actual reports, here again, we're talking about sticking to your budget, your both revenues and expenditures were within less than 1% of what you budgeted for the year. And having revenues $310,000 over your expenditures, which allowed you to transfer $133,000 out to your food service fund to support operations there. So ended up increasing fund balance in the general fund about $175,000. Here's here we have some comparisons. So we have the first two bars are WLA with 24 and 23, and then we have the 23 results for other charters in the region, and then also charters statewide average of similar size. So you can see general revenues, this is per ADM. Consistently, ever since I think we started auditing the organization back in 2019, consistently we've been under what the state aids are for per student on a per student basis. Federal sources are the same thing. Local sources have been pretty consistent, but this really hasn't changed in the number of years we've been presenting it. But some of this has to do with a few of the charts we're going to see in later, but I know WLA doesn't have quite a number of special ed expenditures or students as some of the other districts do, and that accounts for a lot of this variance here. Object code, so expenditures by object code. So if we're taking a look at salaries, benefits, purchase services, and supplies, we just take a look at these on an annual basis. See, even though you're increasing your expenditures here, the breakdown of salaries isn't changing much each year in these categories. So your salaries are staying about, 55 to 58% each year. Benefits are staying steady, and the other categories are well. So. Expenditures per ADM, again, year after year, you go up both average, or some spending per. The building company is just we're paying into the building companies for the debt service payments, so that's your lease payments here on the bar, and these are your debt service expenditures in the company. So building companies break even, you have about $1 million debt service payment requirements each year in the building fund, so you are meeting your requirements there. General fund balance, you can see the darker orange line here. Your peer groups are the other two lines, where you can see you're pretty consistent with what they have in reserves as well for your general fund. And then here we get into elementary and secondary regular instruction, just break out this category program as well as special ed. Here we're spending about $1,000 or $1,500 less than your peer groups on a per student basis. And special ed is similar in here. Peer group is spending around $4,000 to $5,000. You're spending around that $1,000 mark. Again, this isn't just taking a look at just special ed students, it's taking a look at your whole population and dividing them, or taking your special ed expenditures and divided by your entire population. So it doesn't take a look at special ed students individually, but on a worldwide basis, you're spending a lot less in special ed. I believe that's it. I guess I forgot to introduce myself. I'm not on the team this year. I worked on your audit a few years back. Bonnie has taken over as partner. I'm another partner in our firm, so I'm certainly familiar with your school and we can take any questions you have.
Looks like no questions.
Right. I guess I'd just like to say I think Dustin did a nice great job putting everything together, him and his team, and make it an efficient audit for us. So just want to say a shout out to Dustin and his group too.
Brad, I just want to say back to you and your team, it was a group effort there for sure, so smooth on both sides. I'd say thank you to your team as well.
Good deal.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Dustin, did you want to stick around for the, never mind.
No, he does not.
So,
He said no, thank you. The executive governance summary, do we need to go over that? Or is it just-
Those are all part of the audit.
Okay.
All three of
perfect.
these documents
It's
are,
all part of the one.
it's all part of it. And it's- yeah, and it was a clean, no findings, just everybody's had.
Board reports, I know we've received a few emails about the busing updates. We thought maybe some people would show up tonight, but they didn't, so hopefully that means that people are happy with the work that was done to try to amend the situation. I don't really have any new business to put on the board report. I think we are full again with all of our members, so figuring out where everyone's gonna fall what's the word I'm looking for, committee-wise, and then move forward with the full board again. Which is exciting. Over to you.
Superintendent report, huh? All right, yeah, we kind of have a lot going on recently as I'm looking at it, and I've been trying to keep it to the higher level things for the report, so we don't get too in the weeds. But as far as the transportation goes, we are actually still communicating out some of the route change information, so we may still get some feedback about that yet to come. We really only adjusted a couple routes that were pretty minor changes. I did meet with about 25 parents on routes that we were considering changes, to try and understand how potential changes would impact families and our threshold in terms of what we would ask families to do after we started the year as opposed to what we might ask them to do at the beginning of the school year next year are different. And I made that clear to families as we had conversations too, that potentially my recommendation to the board was likely to be that we set a policy that matches the policy in South Washington County, which is, that families should expect buses to be 1 to 3 blocks from their house. And we'll see where we can go from there, but that will come back to the board in a few months. So we'll want to communicate what exactly we do. Also, as part of the exploration on the bigger picture and looking at ways we can improve the situation for next year, I have met multiple times with a representative from First Student who has submitted a quote to us regarding us potentially leasing some buses to provide transportation ourselves. And I'm followed up with Monarch as well to see if they would like to have some conversations about something similar. And when we have kind of more specifics and details, we'll come back to the board, maybe as early as December with some more specifics on that and decide if we want to proceed that way. The goal has, for many years, as I understand it, been for Woodbury Leadership Academy to achieve School of Distinction status from the Core Knowledge Foundation. Currently, there are 8 schools worldwide that are recognized as Core Knowledge Schools of Distinction. And as a next step in this process, we had the Core Knowledge Foundation representative here at school the last 2 days in classrooms. I think we did about, between the 2 days, did about 35 observations there, 15, 20 minutes. And she had about 15 minutes total break each day. I mean, she just went. She met with the administrative team afterwards today just to share, some things that she saw that were really, really positive. She's going to prepare a comprehensive report that we should receive within the next month that will kind of tell us, here are the things that you are really there at, and here are areas that you will want to work at if your goal is to achieve school distinction status. This was not a visit that was designed to evaluate us for that status. It was a diagnostic visit to tell us, here's the things you need to do. So we'll know more about that when we get that report, and that will certainly be shared with the board. Additionally, in following up on the communications audit that we shared in September, there's a number of areas that we've been working specifically on. We are working diligently on the website. The new website will be scheduled to launch in February, but we will actually have a new landing page and a new apply page for our website next week, to coincide with us opening the enrollment process. So that will be happening, and we'll send out tomorrow actually 15,000 mailings to potential students, families that have students in the age range of ages 3 to 14 in the areas we bus. So that will be going out tomorrow. First set, there'll be a second one in December and a third one in January. And so that work is ongoing, and you'll be seeing some of those pieces as we go here. Yeah, so those are kind of some of the key highlights. Additionally, we are, with the facilities committee, beginning to look at space options, and we did do a tour, a few of us at the building, Crossroads across the street here. There's potential to possibly lease a small part of that building as early as next year, and we're exploring what it would take to ultimately but possibly purchase that space. So more will be coming on that in the near future as well. Questions?
Where are we at with numbers right now? Like, are you full, or is there a waiting list, or there?
So we actually have a number of families on like 5 right now, or 6 that are on extended leaves that are overseas. But with the families that are on extended leave, plus the families that are set to start for trimester 2, with all of them together, we're like at 888. And there's only openings in a couple of grades. Third grade has openings. There's about 5 openings in third grade. They're at 23 per class. And there's maybe, first grade has 1 or 2 openings.
I think 2 openings, and then second grade has 1.
So that's about it. There's about 8 openings right now. Let's go for those grades.
I had a question about the building next door. You said that possibly we would lease. Are they sounding like, I know that they've been crabby about parking or one thing or another. Are they willing to, I mean, was it a positive meeting?
Oh, yeah. Well, again, we met with the realtor.
Oh, okay.
Right, that was their realtor. And the people that have challenges with us being there are the tenants more than necessarily the building owners. And one of their main tenants that has a fourth of the building is moving, their lease is up December 31st.
And they haven't renewed at this point?
They haven't got a new place, and they could actually be in sooner, but they're not gonna build out and pay for 2 places.
Oh, okay.
So, but if we were able to lease it, they might be able to be out before school starts, possibly.
Oh, not this December, but next?
Right.
Oh, okay.
But if we were gonna use that space next year, then may be able to get out. They
Right.
prefer that, and the timing would be tight. So, but there's that piece of it. There's also, we got the list of the other tenants there, and there's a couple of them that have lease renewal options coming up soon.
Okay.
And so, we could get through next year with the space we have. The urgency is more like if they go lease and do 5-year leases and 7-year leases to other tenants there, then that becomes a problem. And so we're really trying to thread a needle, starting with the idea that if we were to do it, we would be trying to use as a rough model what was done for this building, where when we moved here, we were leasing the space, part of the space, but there was also a purchase plan to buy the building that was agreed upon by all parties ahead of time. Because we don't want to lease space over there if we're not going to be able to buy it. because that would eliminate us from doing something else. So it's really, there's a lot of pieces that are gonna have to work together, and we got the ball rolling. And the only piece that we're really, piece of information that we really would like to have before we really commit is just seeing what our number of applications is compared to previous years with the marketing that we're doing. But in reality, as we've dug deeper in that, last year, for this current year, only about a third, even less, like between a third and a fourth of the students that are new students here this year had applied by the December 1st lottery. There's about 107 exactly, actually, that are here that applied by the lottery last year, December 1st. Or 270 applied. No, 213 applied. We had to take all the duplicates. So almost exactly half of the people who had applied ended up coming here. But then there's another 250 that applied sometime between February 2nd and yesterday. Even coming in since school started. That includes the ones on the waiting list, I should say. So there's really 200 or so that did. But so we really, even the number of applications that come in don't tell the whole story, because that's really a smaller percentage of what actually ends up being here. And only 50% of those that we accept end up enrolling. Has been the historical number, or the number at least last year. So, but it will still give us, if we have twice as many applicants, give us a pretty good idea that we're in good shape in terms of, being able to have the more space and everything. If we have the same number with doing marketing, then we want to think about,
We can move
Okay.
faster on leasing the building than buying the building at this point. I don't want to get into the weeds. I
Yes.
don't need to take more time.
Yes,
just
we
to-
can move faster in leasing, but we don't necessarily want to lease unless we can buy. Because because we would also have to potentially pay to build the space out, and you don't want to do that if you're not going to be there long term. So there's a lot of different pieces that are moving. We'll have a lot more detail on this in December, January, or February, one of the three, the next meetings, one of the next three meetings. We'll have a lot more for us on it.
Thank you.
I have a question. Are you guys taking a pie to the face this week for gifting
Part
time.
Principal.
Oh, I missed it?
Mm-hmm.
Was it on the
I'll send you the
Facebook?
video.
Yeah.
Was it on Facebook?
Those eye masks were too big.
Those that went through
Parent
Square.
Square.
I don't get Parent Square.
That did the faceless.
Jeez.
Mhm.
All right, I just wanted to make sure someone got a pie to the face this year.
Mr. Rice, Mr. Eckstein.
I think there needed to be more cream
Yeah,
to
pretty
the
wimpy pies.
Like very wimpy pies. Very, very wimpy.
Okay.
Much more cream next time.
Next time we'll know better.
We'll take all your notes into consideration.
If you're not the one getting the pie, right?
Load it up.
It's acknowledged at this meeting that you volunteered to be pied.
No.
To prepare the pies.
Yeah, I will prepare the If someone's gonna get pied, let's do it. Not me.
All right, so, Jolene, go ahead with your finance committee report.
Sure. So the October financial report, summary of key financial indicators. Our average daily membership overview, the original budget was $847, the working budget is $882. Our actual enrollment is $878. The school's original budgeted surplus in general fund for the year is $233,463. The school is budgeting to spend $5,000 out of the community service fund, a projected cumulative fund balance of $2,594,730 or 25% of expenditures at fiscal year end. The school's working budget is projecting a surplus of $268,015 at fiscal year end, which would result in an ending fund balance of $2,629,282 or 24% of total expenditures. Projected days of cash on hand is 65 days of annual expenditures. This is above 45 days, which meets the minimum BOD covenants. The projected debt service coverage is estimated to be 1.25. Should the school bond in FY26, the required debt service coverage ratio will be required to be at least 1.2. If bonding is not completed during FY '26, the debt service coverage ratio will need to be at least 1.1 to satisfy bond requirements. Financial key points. As of month end, 33.33% of the year was complete. Cash balance as of the reporting period is $1,888,714.27 and is down from $1,898,927 in the previous month due to regular processing of transactions, as well as the receipt of a portion of the prior year holdback funds. Revenues received at the end of the reporting period, 31.4% of the working budget. Expenditures dispersed at the end of the reporting period, 27.1% of the working budget. Other items, the FY original budget was approved in the May 2024 board meeting. The FY '25 working budget will be reviewed by Creative Planning and Administration at WLA for appropriate revisions and adjustments based on enrollment and actual expenditures. The FY '24 financial audit was held remotely and will be presented at the November board meeting. The FY lease aid application has been submitted to MDA for approval. Following pages are the colorful graphs to support the data, which I just reviewed, as well as detailed balance sheet statements for all of those figures as well. Are there any questions that I may entertain for the October financial report?
I have a question under the food service fund page. The adopted budget has state and federal food reimbursements at 600,000, but the working budget is 500,000. Do we know why that dropped?
Jonas, could you address that question at all?
Yep, let me just take a look real quick.
Page 9.
Yep, I'm there on page 7, page 9.
Because it leads
Oh.
to transferring another 100,000 from the general fund. Just don't know why we're not getting as much from state and federal.
Well, how much we get reimbursed is based on how many lunches we claim. And so, we adjusted based on the number of lunches and the amount we've been getting reimbursed on the actuals. So that the initial was an estimate and yeah, I'm just looking here, trying to remember everything. Yeah, so it appears that it was the best guesstimate in terms of how much we would get reimbursed was over optimistic. The number 150 for the total transfer, last year we transferred 133,000. So,
So the
What-
50 estimated was under.
yes, and that was before they had gotten through everything last year, was when this original budget was made, and they used the same number they had last year as 50. When they got through to the end and figured out we lost 133 last year, we have more this year, and then we got our first couple months statements back.
Okay.
This is how this is tracking.
Okay.
So, we are, as a result of that information, trying to figure out how we can tighten up. It's really a tricky piece because you end up throwing a lot of food away, a little too much. And then you don't get reimbursed for the meals that you don't actually serve, which is a big part of where that transfer comes from. For the most part, the amount you get reimbursed and the amount you spend are ideally about the same. And then the amount you have to transfer ends up being what you pay for salaries for people that work there. And ours is not quite that good right now, partially because we're serving in 3 different kitchens, so you have to have enough extra in each of the 3. There's a lot of different pieces that go into it that make it really hard. But you also, if you don't order enough and you don't have enough lunches, that becomes highly problematic too. You know, you're trying to order pizzas and you try to get kids fed. And the tendency is to overestimate in September and October, you know, when you're beginning of the year until you figure it out, you have to order a whole month ahead of time.
Until families are used to signing up and.
And you have your trends more
whatever.
clear, you're better off, but you end up eating the money and it comes out of it. And so it is a hard piece, and it took till, you know, July or whatever to figure out that, oh, this is how far we're gonna be in the negative last year.
Okay.
These things tracked about the same, it'll be a little bit more this year because we have more kids.
Okay,
So that's kind of how we got there.
okay.
And it's comparable to, like, every school has a deficit in their food fund. It comes to everyone money.
The drastic changes, but if the state's
Yeah.
delayed in reimbursing and stuff, that makes sense. Thank you.
And last year was the first year you did it. So
Yeah.
last year was a guess.
Right.
Right, for the school when they're doing it, there wasn't any baseline. And they guessed the 50.
All right, well, I will move on to the Finance Committee meeting minutes. We had our regularly scheduled meeting on Wednesday, November 13th at 4:30. It was a virtual meeting. And during this meeting, we discussed the financial statements for October. They were presented by Dustin. Everything was on track and normal. And then Jonas led a discussion on facilities, staffing, and marketing plans. I had to unfortunately leave before that could happen. Jonas, were there any updates you wanted to tell us about in regards to that?
I gave it a little bit about facilities just now.
Yep, mhm.
The salaries is a separate presentation on
Mhm.
7.1, so
Okay.
we'll save it for that.
Sounds good.
And marketing, I basically told everybody
Yeah.
the same information just now. So,
Exactly.
yeah, we'll save it for the presentation.
Okay. So we will have our next regularly scheduled meeting Wednesday, December 11th at 4:30 p.m., and that will be virtually as well. That was our Finance Committee meeting. I'm assuming you ended about 5:30? I didn't get that put on there. I'll put that on. All right, so if there are no questions, I would like to make a motion to approve the October financials and the November Finance Committee meeting minutes.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second to approve the Finance Committee meeting agenda minutes and financial report for October. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Turn it over to Joe for our Governance Committee report.
Yes, we met for governance on Thursday, November 14th, virtually at 5:02 we started. We went through our review of the 200 series for the policies. Policy 201 was sent as part of the board packet for the first reading, a couple changes in that one. 201.1, 203, 203.2 just had some formatting things. We're finding some of these policies that go way back are formatted a little funny, spacing goofy, trying to clean some of that up. We also reviewed policy 104 and also 303, which were also in the board packet for first reading. And then we discussed the new library materials policy. We did find out, thanks to Carly, about needing to make sure we have a licensed media specialist. So we tabled that for now until we can figure that piece out and get more details surrounding that. So we got to do a little more research about that. And then for future discussions, we're going to get a wellness policy for 533, food choices for students, physical education uniforms, again, annual policy reviews for the next series. We're going to continue on some of the 200, also gifted and talented policy, and the new student journalism policy. Does anyone have any questions or comments on?
I think 104 and 303 is the second reading this time around.
I think you're right, it did say, or yeah, final reading, so.
Which means.
All
we
of us
vote?
need to get our background check done this year.
Yep.
But, right, when we vote on it, on the way this is laid out for governance meeting minutes, enter policy 201 into first reading and enter policy 104 and 303 into second reading. So that we're essentially passing 104 and 303 as it is
Okay.
to change your policy. So we can make that motion as is. And
Do all staff do a yearly background check? Okay. And what do we as board members need to do to get in compliance with that then?
Same, so I can check. I don't have access to the background checks anymore, so I can check with that person to see who's, I know the teachers are good, but the rest of it.
Yeah, the rest of us. I know I haven't done
I got
one
an
this
email
year.
from mine from that.
Yeah, so if you've
that I
already
think
registered for
it
it.
hits you
then-
up with an email that, hey, you're due
I have not.
to could do
I
it.
know.
Okay. I will,
So,
so Shelby
and then probably the new
Greg and
folks, yeah. Yeah.
I'm guessing that you probably did it for the new people, getting the, Joe, did you get one to do?
Well, I did it at the beginning of the year just as a parent, so I
Parent
could
volunteer,
do,
yeah,
but yeah,
that makes sense.
so I could throw my name in half the field trips and the like.
I don't have that first email either.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Otherwise, I think, do I need to make that motion? It's a 104 and 303, so make a motion to approve the governance meeting minutes and enter policy 201 into the first reading and enter policy 104 and 303 into the second reading.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Ben, you can do facilities?
Sure.
Okay.
I gotta stand up at this podium.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be great, a new podium to make it more official.
I'll break it in. Yeah, Mike. So facilities team meeting, we met on November 12th. We went over a couple just kind of key issues. A lot of it was updating some past discussion points. So the first thing we talked about is the green bin, the green closed bin, which has now been put. If you pulled into our parking lot, you probably saw it over there if it wasn't too dark. And it is now accepting recycled clothing items that then, once that bin is full, get taken by that company off, and then the school receives a percentage back on that issue. So kind of an ongoing fundraising effort. Thanks Jolene for kind of bringing it to our attention. But we worked with the city to make sure we have a good place for it. And so now we're all set with that. So that was the first thing we kind of talked about. We talked a little bit about our field. HGA, who is our civil engineer, submitted the final plan now to the city that we believe will be approved. This doesn't mean that we have to stick to this plan. This plan is a scope of about a 5-year plan that we had kind of started. It has the soccer field as it exists, it has a playground, it has additional parking, and it has pickleball courts. Now, if it gets approved, we're approved for those type of improvements, but we're also approved for the watershed for that amount of impermeable substance that would be out there. So if we change our mind and we say, nope, we actually want to do it this way, or we want to do it this way, that's okay, as long as we stay in the scope of what we've been approved for. So that's kind of some exciting news. And I think, Cass, did I send that to you? I think I attached that, a plan, but if
I think I missed that.
not, I can get it out to the board. Blinds in 1A are complete. Teachers are very much loving their life with their new blinds, so that was an exciting piece that we got done. Vending, now WLA has vending machines in the 2B and 2A staff lounges. We are partnering with a parent on that, and once again, WLA gets a 20% kickback on anything that is purchased from those machines. And then the final piece that Jonas already kind of talked a little bit about is the possible property. And then we went as a facilities team, the members that were available over there on Monday to kind of do that walkthrough. But that was the piece that we talked about at our facilities meeting. Any questions? Cool. I don't think I have to put it to a vote to get them approved.
So you're up again.
So I'll go sit down and I'll come back up. So now I get to talk to you about what? Events and activities, which is pretty exciting. So I got the really great opportunity this year to change my role a little bit here at WLA and really kind of focus on two things that I really enjoy doing, which is working on our beautiful facility, making sure that we're putting these programs into place and we're making the right steps in those directions, and then to help develop and enhance the after-school programming that we have at WLA. And so we have done a lot this fall and this winter, and we're pretty proud of where we're at right now, but we know we still have some places to go. So a couple of the things that we have done, I have our little list. So We started off with middle school and high school competitive robotics, right? They will compete at a few tournaments this year. And so that was kind of one of our kickstart pieces. We also had an ultimate frisbee team this fall that would meet on Mondays and Wednesdays, and they competed on weekends as well. We've had an ongoing relationship with Young Rembrandts, who has done art programs for K through 9, and those are pretty popular. I just walked by their setup tonight after school, and they had about 18 to 20 kids that are signed up for their art program, and those run throughout the whole year, so they've been in there. We saw the middle school and high school had that opportunity to do robotics, and so through a new relationship with Mr. Colin Kilbane, we've been able to have younger students be able to participate in robotics as well. So Mr. Kilbane comes to school and he does two things. He does a science club and he does a robotics younger club that they run after school. And then in the winter, he's gonna do a Minecraft coding club, which I think is gonna have quite a few people. We also tonight, it's not our first night of it, but we have a crochet club. And we were worried at first, or I was worried admittedly. I was like, gotta get 10 people to be in your club in order for it to be an after school activity. They have 40 people that come to the crochet club after school. And we have, I think today we had 4 or 5 staff members stay after to crochet. So that is a big hit. We have, I lost my spot on my page, so sorry. We also, let's see, archery. So Jolene, you're here. Our archery club / team is going to be a competitive team this year. You're going to have the opportunity. They have 50 members in archery, and we're just in the process of making sure we schedule some in-house kind of tournament play, some in-house competitions. So that way all of our members get a chance to see what a competition looks like, even if they choose not to be on the competitive team. So that was a big launch. Battle of the Books, which is our Tuesday night, one Tuesday a month. They're at 60 members now. So this is our biggest round of Battle of the Books, and we have 4 staff members that stay and work with those people. We have drama club that comes after school. Of course, our student parliament. We have a chess club, and then our big launch too in fall is boys and girls basketball. So I always like to take out our jerseys and show them off of our new stylish WLA, so we're looking good. They had an in-house scrimmage today. They have their big scrimmage where we're inviting people, board members, you are all invited, on the 16th of December, and then on the 19th of December, they get to go and play against MSA. And so it'll be an away game, and they are pumped about that. Our girls' season will then start after winter break, and we will do the same there with some in-house scrimmages and some chances to play other teams if we can schedule. On the horizon is a whole bunch of things. So I met with the city of Woodbury, and because they're in steady use of our facility, we have changed our agreement. So now we have access to a baseball field, a softball field, and tennis courts. So in exchange for them using our facility, now we get to use some of their facilities. So the hope is to have a softball team 6 through 9, a baseball team 6 through 9. I met with the athletic director of Nova, Chris, and he would like to possibly partner with us to launch those softball teams and baseball teams and kind of have a co-op to start in case we are short on students. With that meeting, we also started the process of joining the Minnesota Middle School Charter School Athletic Association. Long name. So we're hoping to join a competitive league for middle schoolers for the charter schools around our area starting next year. And then we're starting the process of joining the Minnesota High School League as well. So a lot of things kind of going, a lot of things moving, but I think our students are really getting a lot of opportunity to participate in a lot of different functions, and it's feeling pretty cool. When you have a Tuesday or a Thursday like today after school, and you have over 100 kids that aren't getting on the bus, aren't going home because they're staying here for some sort of program, that's a big deal. And so we're really proud of all the steps that we've taken for that. Cool. Any questions about events?
What grades are the basketball?
Right now, basketball is 6 through 9.
6 through 9, okay.
If we join, or when we join that middle school athletic conference, then that will be 6 through 8, and then we'll have to be in the high school league for 9th and 10th grade going into next year. Cool. All right, thank you all.
Be careful, the third graders might come and take your job.
Which one, what?
They're starting their own clubs.
Yeah. Bring the flyers to me, get 10 kids signed up and we'll get them in.
Be careful what you promise.
I do have a question, sorry, I lied. You don't have to, you can sit down. So the people the staff that stay and do the clubs, are you guys doing stipends for them, or is it all volunteer?
Yeah, so we're doing stipends. And so what we did is we tried to break it down into an hourly amount, and then we're really using some of our coaches this round as kind of a test project and how that would work out, where we're making some estimates over how many hours we really think you're going to be putting in, because we share gym space. So like Jolene is in for Tuesdays, Wednesdays right now for archery, and so boys basketball's in Monday and some Thursdays. So it's not like an everyday after school activity,
Yeah.
but we've been doing stipends for those folks.
Awesome.
Cool.
And those, in the budget wise, those will be under community education. The part we have there.
Yep. Yep.
Teacher compensation. Hand it back over to Jonas.
Outstanding. So, just as a reminder, and I actually I shared with the board, the slideshow for a presentation I will be doing tomorrow to the staff, state of the school, presentation tomorrow morning. But starting in the summer, when we got feedback from staff and combined with some things I shared, really had 4 primary goals to start the year. One, just to try and have a smooth transition. Make sure we didn't have any major gaps and things blow up because we missed something that's a change in leadership. 2 was to address communication, to improve our communication systems, which we've talked about quite a bit. 3 was to work on some pieces around school climate and student behavior in classrooms. That has been supportive of our responsive classroom work and by some of the systematic changes we've made to how we're addressing those situations in classes and tracking it. And the 4th one, as part of the more broad goal of teacher recruitment, development, and retention being such a key component of schools, was to really look at our salary schedule. And as part of that process, did a few things. I did some research and some foundational work. I brought some assumptions to the finance committee, which I'll share here about what I think we can do and how I think we can do it. We convened a representative group of teachers that we met 3 times. The first meeting was really helping us understand, here's why we can't do more, and here's why we can't just flat out match the salaries of our surrounding districts. Here's the limitations we have and why. Why we can't, and amongst those, there's a lot of them, but one big piece is that we keep our class sizes small, and that does limit your biggest expenditure being teacher salaries and benefits. The second meeting was, here is what we think we can do and why. And then the third meeting was really laying out a plan and making sure everybody felt okay with the plan. And so I'm just going to kind of take you through each of those 3 pieces. Well, not the piece about why we can't do more. We already understand we have budget limitations. But if you look at the 3 documents, and Kathy, I think you need to scroll down to 7.1. Nope, not there yet. Not the link yet. Scroll down to So we're actually gonna start with the middle one. The FY '26, yes, that's next year initial budget assumptions. But basically, we started with the concept that our budget this year is about right. That we probably, you know, if we're careful, if we did 3% raises to match the state increase in funding for next year for all positions other than teachers, and we kept our expenditures similar to what they are this year in every other category, you know, allowing for some inflation, that we would be in about where we should be for next year. That was kind of the starting assumption that I worked with Dustin, and, you know, we both agreed on that. And so then the idea was, well, the way we can put more money towards salaries is through our growth. And the document you're looking at here shows you what growth we'd be looking at and expecting to have next year. Likely having one additional kindergarten section, and grades 1 through 5 being the same as they are now, based on space limitations. That's what there's room for in a building, is one more class. And then 6th grade having one additional section, and then 7th through 12 having 3 additional sections, being, well, likely 2 7th grade being new, because we have 4 6th grades, and we retain our 6th grade to 7th grade, so that would be 4 7th grades next year, and adding the 10th grade section. There's potentially room for one more than that if we had enough 9th graders to have 2 9th grades, or there's some different ways we can do it. But that's conservative, and this is based on if we weren't doing any marketing or anything to try and increase anything, this is what we would expect to be able to do comfortably next year. And I'll show you why that is when we get to the next document, the enrollment projections one. But doing that, long story short, using very conservative numbers, that would generate about $1,047,200 of additional revenue for next year. And so then what additional expenses? Well, we figured that that's going to require us to have 8 additional teachers for 5 homerooms and another specialist, and maybe that tips us with another EL and another interventionist, and 1 additional non-licensed person that probably tips us in the, or somebody that tips us in the office, to needing 2 office people, 3 additional buses. It probably only tips you needing 1 additional bus, but we're too short this year, so we're saying 3, because that's not factored in those extra buses in the starting assumption. And then about another $150 a student for paper and supplies and things like that. And so we came to, conservatively, we think that those 5 extra sections would generate $1,047,000 and cost us $771,000, and the $275,000 $700 difference is what we could afford to put toward teacher raises. That's how we came up with that number. Okay, so then let's go back. And so we brought that to, Dustin and I worked on that, came up with that, brought that to the finance committee. Finance committee made sense to the finance committee, and we're good to go there. Do I need to give you access to something?
No, I just have to reopen it.
Yeah, not this one yet, we want the other one, the enrollment one. Okay, so the main purpose of showing you this document is why, to help you understand why we think the numbers are being very conservative in terms of our enrollment growth for next year, without marketing and all those pieces. So that's the purpose here, and I actually got pulled up in mine because my eyes are not good enough to see the board there. So give me a second here. Here we go again. All right, so the enrollment target. So if you look at the first column in yellow, I don't know if you have it up on your screens or if it's bigger, but the first column in yellow is where our enrollment is this year, not counting our waiting lists. Okay? And then in column E, between this here, if you go to column E and you look at line 4, that That is the percentage of kindergartners last year that returned for first grade this year. 83.7. Okay, so I took it, said, well, let's guesstimate that the same percentage will return, but we have more kindergartners this year, right? So the 101 we have, and it's actually, including the waiting list, it's 114. We didn't even factor that into this part. And so that would be 84.5 returning. This year we had 30 new first graders. So that, those two numbers together would be more than the 110 we have room for, it'd be 115. Right, so that's kind of guesstimating what we would do. And really, as you go down the list, from first grade to second grade, then the next line, 84% return this year. Well, we have more, first graders this year, but so if 90 returned, and we have the same number of new students, and this is without doing any marketing last year, that would put us at 113 students, and we need 110 with these numbers to get there. These aren't grades that are growing. When you go down, the big ones to look at are sixth grade. So if you go down to line 9, so from fifth grade to sixth grade last year, 63.95% of our students returned. But we have a lot more students in fifth grade now than we did last year. I think we had, if I remember right, like 85 students in fifth grade last year, or it was much less. And so the same percentage return, that's 75.5 returning. We have 47 new ones this year. That would put us well over the 120 mark we need to get 5 sections. If just the trends hold, how many new students we get, how many students percent return, because we're building from larger numbers. And then of course, where there'd be another place of big growth is 7th grade, is because, right now this year we have 2 sections, but we have 96 plus a number on the waiting list in 6th grade right now. But if the same percentage return, which was 78% this year, that's 75 returning, and we have 31 new ones, including the waiting list this year. It shouldn't be a problem to get to the 7 sections based on all the previous trends. So this is how the 2 sections there, and then of course just adding 10th grade, and then having one more 6th grade section. That's, which is just following these trends, is why we think those numbers are not stretches, or, without even doing any of the marketing we're doing, they should be the numbers we would expect to get. So it's based on our space limitations, not having more space next year. This is how many sections if we had more sections, potentially we could have, if we have more space, we could potentially have more sections if we do get that, and that's where we'll look at how much more dramatically is our applications increase to the marketing we're doing. And if it's not much more, then maybe we need to think about this. But with the space we have right now, we max out the amount of we can get to about 900 kids. So even with this, there's 124 more than that. 124 times about 1,314 per student is money that could be going towards lease somewhere else that wouldn't really cost us anything if we don't grow any more than this. You're tracking why we think that I'm not worried about having the growth to support what we're counting on to get that extra dollars. Are there questions about these 2 things?
I just want to be super optimistic that this marketing is going to rock and we're going to get so many more kids next year. What are we going to do?
We won't be able to take that many more.
Right.
But it's still important to do, because in order to get the financing we need to ultimately buy that space.
You need the proof in the waiting list.
They need the proof in the waiting list anyways, especially for high schools, because high schools fail at a much higher rate, and especially in the current environment where there's a lot of charter schools that are having a hard time paying their bond obligations through the number of students they have. Investors are much more conservative right now. But we also don't necessarily want to wait any longer than we have to with all the talk of moratoriums and expanding charter schools. You kind of want to get it done before that potentially hits too, if you're able to. So there's a lot of different pieces that we're trying to thread that we're just going to have to take one step at a time. But things could happen at some point quicker and like, well, we need to act now or we might not be able to, and we need to be ready to do it, you know, like we're talking about with the leases across the street or, and so, you know, taking one step at a time, but also trying to really have our ducks in a row to play things out as much as we can ahead of time and be ready to make good decisions, even if we have to make them a little quicker, you know, than we like, that we've already really done a lot of the background work. But really, this isn't about the facilities. This is showing you why that $275,000 number is what I would want to plan to put in our recommendation for our budget for '26. We're not developing a budget for '26 yet, but that's laying that out. So far, we good? So let's go to the third and final document then, which is, got two parts to it. The first part here, and I'm actually gonna kind of get up and show you because that is describing. This, when it says the years, this is usually called steps, is what they call them, teacher contracts, right, in districts. But this is a first-year teacher, second-year teacher, third-year teacher, fourth-year teacher, so on and so forth. This is the average of the three surrounding districts, 49,760 for next school year. Okay, so their contracts have already been passed. Stillwater, South Washington County, and North St. Paul school districts. Okay, second year teacher, that's the average, third year teacher, fourth year teacher, with just a bachelor's degree. This lane is what we have here plus $4,000. When you start getting down here, in those districts, the numbers with master's degrees are much, much bigger than this. So, you know, we have the 68,000, we add the 4,000 for a master's degree. What my hope would be realistic is that we could, as many years as possible, match the bachelor's degree category. Okay? And that we would know we can't get there with a master's degree. I mean, the teachers with a master's degree in 25 years, they're making almost 100,000 now. In those districts, and with having small classes, there's no way we can do it. Right? But can we at least get competitive here where the teachers can stay for a long time and still be we can be highly competitive. And so that was kind of the hope. So I created this document. This is the start baseline. This is just the plus 4,000. And then added 3% next year and 3% after. Figuring, you know, 2 to 3% is kind of the norm over the years, and a little bit more into the 3% side the last few years with inflation and everything. And so that's where these lanes come from. Okay, so then what we did, can we go to the current draft tab now? Okay, so these are, the name actually, these are our actual teachers. So right now, this year, we have one teacher who's, this is what their step would be this year. So this year, this is the first year teaching, they're making $42,830. This is a teacher who's in their second year making $42,848. Why these aren't 100% consistent is, I can't totally explain. It kind of predates me, and there's reasons in some cases. But in some of it, in some cases, is that not every teacher was given all their years of experience when they started. When you start in a new school district, sometimes they'll cap you at 6 years or however many years they give you. That's not an uncommon practice. Okay, some teachers got like credit for years out of state, or you know, some teachers were maybe given in order to match what they're being offered somebody else, or given their year subbing or something. I don't know all the scenarios, but there's some different reasons why they're not totally consistent. And one of the purposes of this whole process was to try and get them consistent and equitable for the teachers over the time we do it, in addition to addressing competitiveness. Okay, but so when we plugged all of these in, well, when we plugged all these in, that's not even shown over here, but it came to closer to $600,000 than the $275,000 we have available through the cost. Okay, so to try and do what I was hoping we could maybe do was gonna cost twice as much as we could afford for next year. So that wasn't an option to get to, the hope. And so I said, then we started playing with some different scenarios and said, well, okay, what if we said the most anybody could get next year is $5,000? So they would either be placed on the scale or $5,000, whichever is less for a raise. And I mean, I experimented with a lot of different numbers, but 5,000 was the number that got us to what we could afford. That's actually kind of how that, the trial and error. And so if you go to the very bottom of the screen, so that would be, that would cost us $254,000 if we did the $5,000 raise as the maximum. Nobody would be at that place in the scale, so everybody who's returning would get a $5,000 raise. Okay, for next year. There would still be about $20,000 under the number we said we could get to. So then we went back and looked at it and said, well, one thing that I think would be really helpful that wouldn't be that expensive, let's scroll back up now, is if we could advertise for our new teachers that our starting salary is $50,000, right? There's something, hitting that next 50,000 range as opposed to the high 40s as a psychological piece, right? In terms of how it, feels where you're at, and may help with recruiting. And to bring these people up to 50,000 was only going to cost between all of them, about $10,000 more. So plug that in, and go back down to the bottom. And so that brought it up to 264,000. But the problem with that, it's not really equitable that our new teachers are the ones that get more money than the veteran ones that have been here. We don't really want to do that, but we can't hire new teachers. So then we went back, we go back down the way we addressed that, is we played out year 2 and 3. Okay? And so in year 2, looking at what we think we could probably afford, might be closer to 4,000, and playing with it 4,000. But the teachers that got more money this year would get less next year, so it would be equal over the 2 years. So that was kind of the next piece to make that equitable, where now this teacher is getting, more than 5,000 next year, but it's only getting 1,830 the year after, and it's the same over 2 years. So that made it, we could get that 50,000 milestone, we could have it be equitable for everybody over the 2 years. And so that basically what this is showing is everybody gets $5,000 next year unless it's in purple. If you scroll down, nobody else is in purple. The $5,000 doesn't get anybody else to where they would be on that scale. Okay? Then we can scroll back. If we play this out over another year, so let's go back to the top. So these people we know are getting less. If we say that 4,000 is the max in year 2, scroll up. Keep going still. There's a couple people down here that would get less than 4,000 because they hit that place on the salary scale that matches the districts. There's about 4 people total that would get a little bit less than 4,000 because they hit that place. In year 3, all of these people would have hit that place in the scale where we're matching the surrounding districts. And the total costs go from 10% next year, so scroll up again. So, to the bottom, scroll to the bottom so we can see, to, in year 2, it'll be 7%. Year 3, it's 5.96% with the staff we have right now. Now, if some veteran teachers leave and they're replaced by newer teachers, then it'll be less than that, of course. And over the 3 years, it's a 24% increase, but it gets almost everybody to their place on that goal to start with. If not real close, then we should be able to get into the year after without having to do as bigger raises. It was just doing the 3%. Hopefully get us there. So that's kind of the thinking and the way of going about it. But what I emphasize with the committee as I'm going to present this to the board is that what I'd be asking the board for is to give approval to build our 26 budget with the assumption that this is what we're gonna do for a salary scale, which would be a significant increase, that we would be putting on anything we create, that this is our plan and our hope for the following 2 years, but it's subject to the budget. We can't promise it, right? We don't know what unexpected things are gonna happen, and we're not passing a guarantee this is what we're gonna do. This is our plan, but at a minimum, if we can't do this, we're gonna have to be able to explain why. You know, this is our plan, and this is what we think we're gonna be able to do, but it's not proof that second and third year. Is that, we all tracking kind of in the committee, all felt, I mean, Colleen was on the committee, Allison was on the committee. Am I missing any part of our discussion? Am I representing it right? How did you feel the people on the committee felt about all of this?
Grateful.
I mean, and it's, you know, as board members, one of your responsibilities is to provide financial oversight and make sure we're not going too much and whatever. And that's an important part. But it's also a reality that we also are trying to have as high quality school as possible. And the number one thing with having a high quality school is your teachers. You send your kid to any schools, they got a good teacher, your kid's gonna have a good experience in color, right? Whatever else you do. And we're not competitive enough, I feel like we can retain and recruit the way we are without making a significant adjustment. I said that back to when I interviewed for this position in December, and my biggest concern about taking the position was I think it's almost impossible to get to our goals if you're having super high teacher turnover every year. And on top of it, you're not able to recruit the best candidates coming out because you're not competitive at the bottom. And it's just much more true than that statement is much more true today than it was 5 years ago or even 3 years ago with what we've seen in trying to attract and retain teachers both here and in my previous places.
And
So,
you think these numbers leave enough money left for this building and additional space? The way we're hoping and expecting the enrollment to grow?
yes,
Okay.
yes. We wouldn't do anything we couldn't afford space-wise. Part of the reality, part of the reason for that is that we access a whole bunch of, we access a significant amount of money in lease aid by adding the more space for the students we have. We can't access that in lease aid for this space based on, well, it's complicated. But the answer is yes. This was done before I really thought that over there next year was an option. I thought it was the year after, which was part of the first year we're making a commitment to. Second and third year, we have to see how things play out. But yeah, I do. And I feel like I've worked with our finance person, Dustin, looking through the numbers. And the only way things don't work is if our enrollment doesn't hit what we think it is here. And I think those numbers are conservative. You know, unless there's something that just is totally unexpected.
Because even this year, more are returning than had stayed in the past.
Correct. So if that trend changed for some reason, but I feel like our families are, all the feedback I get, our families are at least as happy or more than they have been, so I can't see why the number would go down, the percentage. You know, and the thing I think in our case is, let's talk about the worst case scenarios. The worst case scenarios we're wrong. Okay, we have a 27% fund balance. Okay, so what we don't meet is that, first, you don't meet that requirement of having the 20% of your fund balance in the positive for the year, what they call the MADs. So we wouldn't be eligible to get bonds by next year, after, and you have to lease longer. Or you're even worse off than that and you're below the 1.1, which is our bond covenant. Well, that means that they can appoint somebody as an advisor and tell us things that we have to do until we get back up to that point. It's not that we can't pay our bills. It's not that we go where, Step Academy is right now. It's not ideal, for sure. We don't want somebody to to tell us what we have to do. And they can tell you, well, you need, your superintendent's making bad financial decisions, you need to get rid of them and get somebody new. I mean, that happens. I mean, I think that if this happened in this case, whatever the reasons would be.
But also, if we don't get as many students, then you don't need as many teachers, and we don't.
There's a lot.
So like, there's a lot of
different pieces
that
here.
affect each other.
Yeah, but I'm saying if we don't meet the expectations that I think are solid decisions here, it's not, oh, we can't pay our bills, we have to get rid of a whole bunch of people, we don't meet those agreements, and those are the consequences of it. So it'd be different if we're talking about having a 5% fund balance, and if we're off all of a sudden, we're getting close to not being able to pay bills or something, And so that's not the consequence if we were wrong, which I don't think we are wrong, or I wouldn't be making recommendations. I'm not asking you to approve this tonight. The idea here was to present this to the board tonight, give you time to think about what I'm going to be recommending. And depending on the timing of some things, maybe bringing it for final approval in January when we see the applications. I would like to try and do it in January and not February, because we're going to a bunch of job fairs in February to recruit candidates for next year, and I'd like to be able to put that $50,000 in a flyer to try and recruit candidates for next year when we go to those job fairs. Otherwise, I would say February, so we make sure we see the final application numbers. But again, I also think those final application numbers are in some ways maybe less significant than I thought now that I realize that 2/3 to 3/4 of the kids that end up enrolling in the past haven't gone back to February 1st anyway. So, I think the information we have, unless there's something that jumps out between that, I think approving the next year piece for January, some kind of resolution that we're approving setting this as a parameter for building our budget for our salaries, and kind of committing to it for staff so that they know for the next year, and this is what we're trying for the next 2 years, but we can't make 100% firm commitment in the way we word things for year 2 and 3. So you can kind of noodle it right now. It's not a decision we're trying to vote on tonight or anything. When you understand, be able to ask questions, be able to think through things as they come up over the next couple of months until we do have to vote on it.
So with the committee, was it all teachers?
Yes.
And
I presented possibly having a couple
Yeah.
board members so you can see, but
No,
we had 2 board member teachers, so that helped.
Yeah, no, and I only asked that because I'd like to hear more. I heard a couple things, like the teachers, I guess, reaction to that. It sounded like, I heard grateful, or just like, especially some of the long-term teachers and all that stuff. It's kind of nice to hear the feedback, which maybe isn't necessarily right now, but as we're noodling this, to hear their thoughts on it too, because
And
said, keeping those
I think there is gratefulness. I appreciate it. I heard a lot about it.
Yeah.
I will say something that we do need to acknowledge, though, is it doesn't get us there where we're competitive for everybody.
Right.
Teachers that have been here have been teaching for 20 years and have a master's degree, we're still not competitive.
Right.
We're closer. We're closing the gap some, but I don't think it's realistic for us to be competitive and keep small class sizes. We won't go into a whole financial presentation, but for all kinds of reasons, that was what my first meeting with them is. Here's why we can't get all the way there and do the same thing as if we talked. And you're making some choices to have smaller classes and have some of the other advantages of being here.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we can keep a lot more and keep them longer, but there will still be financial incentive for some great teachers that are experienced and have master's degree. I can't get away from that. We just need to limit it as much as possible, is the reality.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I guess it's just nice to hear some of the feedback too of what the reactions are from the teaching staff.
Yep.
And it sounds like a lot of it with the growth part and getting, whether it be that space and with the tenants, could be a big plus, is kind of what I'm hearing.
I think that without growing,
I mean, we're gonna have to too,
With-
with expanding into high school.
Right,
at some point.
right, but like, let's just for conversation's sake say, oh, we didn't about face, so this high school thing was a mistake, and we don't want to be this big,
Yeah,
you know, we lost our smaller field, we're gonna cut things off, and this is as big as we're gonna get. We can't do that without cutting things that are already in place.
yeah.
Then we have to eliminate things to try and get to the salaries. And so, yes, it's why, it's one big advantage of continuing to grow is there's a lot of pieces in place where the expenses don't grow nearly as much as the added revenue. Right? When you, even with transportation type thing, you already have these routes going to these neighborhoods where you're getting more kids for. You don't necessarily need to add a proportionate number of new buses.
Right.
We've already kind of built an administrative model where we shouldn't really need many more administrators. Even if we got 1,300 kids, we probably have the right model that still works. But there's a lot of pieces that, you know, are the same cost, however many kids you have, that won't change, which is why the growth will mean more revenue than the cost to do it if we do it right, and why we should do it.
So we've got that one lead, and that's kind of part of why I ask it. We're working with a realtor, it sounds like, and are there other leads of other properties? And I throw that out there too, just, I know there's a lot of office vacancy. So I mean, and I don't know about necessarily right here in Woodbury, which would be ideal to be as close to this
It's a
building.
fair question.
Yeah.
The timing ramped up partially because they reached out to us.
Okay,
The realtor across the street reached out to him who's worked with us before.
gotcha.
So that partially started. I was kind of in a mode where wanted to wait until we see the applications came in February 1st before I really looked to do much.
Right.
But I was also in the back of my head, well, if that is an ideal situation because it creates one campus, how many leases might be? And I got that information yesterday
Yeah.
out of this process, and there is a little bit of timing piece there too, where there are some leases that are coming up due here that we don't want. But, so the answer is we haven't much.
Fully dove.
We haven't, and then I talked about a few different places that if that fell through, that could be interesting possibilities that we could explore, but nothing that we had looked at the building on the other side, the warehouse space over here, but that wouldn't ever be an option to buy.
Sure.
And so it would be a less ideal situation, you know, if you're gonna go in there, in order to build out the space, you'd have to probably commit to doing 10 years or something to get them to build it out for you. And now you're stuck not being able to buy anything in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reasons why that wouldn't be, you know.
Throw it out there just because there is maybe an opportunity for the school with what the market conditions are, because
Great.
of office struggles. I mean, you got the Hartford building that, I don't know if they're gonna fully tear it down and put a Top Golf, but, which is cool and fun for the city, but I just,
100%,
that's
yeah.
where it's like,
Yeah.
maybe it's worth,
No, and I
yeah,
think
more
we
of a
will.
feeler out there or somebody, yeah.
And especially if they're asking an unreasonable price because they know it's a, you know, where it's a marriage for us to,
Right.
they call it realty to be there, but doesn't mean we're gonna pay
Yep.
more than the value of the place either. So it's one step at a time, but there's reasons why that makes the most sense as a next step.
Yeah.
And there's also reasons why, even with what's going on in the realty world, it's kind of balanced by the challenges of getting the financing right now too.
Yep.
So that's the whole scoop. Not asking anything other than to be aware that it's coming, and if you have real concerns about it, let's be sure to talk about it and dig in, so it's not a surprise when we do ask you to vote on it in January.
All right. Did you go to 8? Did you want to do branding marketing, or is that kind of, we've already covered all that?
Oh,
That was my.
I meant to just do what was in the superintendent report and not
That's
go
my
deeper
fault.
than that today. Sorry.
Okay, we're good?
I did have that on the original, and I had to take it off.
All right. Now we'll,
And you guys are,
yeah, we'll
you're
move on
doing
to
something
8.
else anyways.
Yeah, I am. Consent agenda items are considered routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the board member so requests, in which the item will be removed as a consent agenda item and addressed. Consent agenda items are as follows. Approval of the 2024 October board meeting minutes, the WLA assessment calendar plan, and the personnel update as of November 21st, 2024. Are there any questions or any reason to forego a roll call vote?
I just really quick want to know is like the testing calendar, that's not changing any days off of school, right? Okay.
All right, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote then.
Yes. Colleen Lautenbach.
Aye, or yes.
Allison Pitt.
Aye.
Aye. I think, yeah.
Yay.
Shelley Poole.
Yeah.
Carly Share.
Yay.
Jillian Scorp.
Yay.
Joe Valentine.
Okay.
All right, motion carries. Moving on to the WLA annual report and World's Best Workforce. I personally know how much time and effort that takes. I'm not sure if you did that one or Kathy did last year's one before she left, but
It was a combination of both, and it probably should have been attached. If you're at your computer though, it's posted on our
it was.
website.
It was attached.
It was?
It's just not highlighted.
Just not highlighted, okay, good.
I went through all 582 pages.
Yeah, no, just blends in more pages.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, it was mostly completed, but we had to add all the testing data, MCA data, and tweaks, and the new, some pieces, but, yeah.
Mhm.
So I think the board needs to approve it.
Approval, yep. So I would make a motion to go ahead and approve the annual report and World's Best Workforce from 23-24.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any further conversation? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And 9.2, approve the audit report that was presented this evening. I make a motion to approve said audit report.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Future agenda items. Nothing that I'm aware of on anyone's radar coming up. We will get the committees figured out and get everyone appointed to one, but otherwise, that's about it. So our next regular board meeting will be held here Thursday, December 19th at 5:30 p.m. And I would make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion